What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Football Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Our number two from our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports. We talk about them all season long. Black Friday right around the corner. They got Black Friday specials the entire week. Golf, baseball, football, hockey gear, field hockey, you name it, they've got it. They've got in-store specials. They got the doorbusters as well, 50% off. You got 20% off some other items. Always mention, you heard it right here on BYP, and you'll get that 10% off your order, 10% added to the buy as well. So we always appreciate our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. And if you go online, playitagainsports.com, put in the location, New Jersey. With that being said, we welcome in our good friend, the prop, Professor Shine, kind enough to join us for a couple of moments. By the way, before we start off, I tweeted this out. You know what today is. I mean, there's a major anniversary going on.
Yeah, Dwayne with his crazy handicapping system. And those of us at a certain age remember that. If you ever get a chance to watch it in syndication, it's absolutely brilliant. And I remember as a kid, he was on fire.
Yeah.
Remember? I'd love to find out. I mean, it's easy to find out who wrote that episode, but it's
classic.
It's hysterical because he's on fire, and the uncle gets wind of it and puts 500 on stupid Tampa Bay in 1977.
That was actually, it was remember too, it was Rerun's brother-in-law, Ike, who puts 5.
That's right. That's right. It was the brother-in-law.
Yeah, trip to Hawaii, the What's Happening episode. And Dwayne Wayne decides, I'm going to take the Bucks plus 21. This is 1976 against the Raiders, who squashed the Raiders. Nothing. Yeah, but still the greatest line ever, because it holds true today with some of these shills and these goofballs. You know, why'd you pick them? Why like the uniforms and the helmets? Classic episode.
Remember, he had the system. It was he divided the distance. And Ike was like, well, it was like the distance to the home field where the games. He goes, what happened if that doesn't work? He goes, I just picked the helmet I like best.
By the way, a $500 trip to Hawaii, 1976. Not bad. I mean, my goodness. So with that being said, Thursday Night Football last night, little snooze fest, hit the under again, Carolina and Chicago. I think this is the week, though, the weekend in the NFL. We've talked about it. You've mentioned it over the last several weeks. You start to look at these in-game live betting, these first half lines, see if these teams are going to roll over in the second half. We've got some short odds, tighter games, if you will. But then again, we're going to have some opportunities where I think there's going to be some blowouts and they'll be able to put some money in the pocket. I mean, you look at some of these lines right away. You got some marquee games, Cincinnati, the Texans, Vikings and the Saints is a big game. Jags and 49ers is a big game. Obviously, the Eagles have the bye. That Cowboys line is now at 16.5, 17. I mean, and then you got the Jets and the Raiders. How about Monday night? We talked a little bit about that. I love the Chargers in that spot. So that was a nice little relaxing night for myself. And then you got the Bills and the Broncos, which is, perhaps Buffalo's last stand on Monday night. So where you want to start?
People are tending to think, week to week, it's easy to do. It's something I did years ago where, that recency bias where you see a team play well one week and then next week, you're like, what the heck happened to this team? A lot of the NFL, which makes it so difficult, is, scheduling is important. If you play home against somebody that's maybe equal to you and you have a good game and you win that game, and then if you're on the road to somebody maybe it's a little bit below, a little bit more inferior, and you can't figure it out because the line's different, and that team goes and lays a dud on the road. Now I know home field isn't what it was across the board for every team,
right?
I still think Eagles have a slight home field advantage. I still think Kansas City, maybe Seattle, but it's nowhere near what it was even 10, let alone 15, 20 years ago. I mean, look, it's just Philadelphia where the vet was such a mess. The fans on top of you. Of course, they're not playing. They didn't stop Dallas from coming in here and beating the Eagles back when they had superior teams. But with that being said, you look at it. People see a game like the Texans.
Yep.
and they see how they just Stroud played great. Tampa Bay's defense up to that point has played well, and then the roof caves in on them, and then they have to turn around and they're kind of fooling themselves, and then they have to go and play at Cincinnati,
Yep.
and the line's under a touchdown, and of course the first thing commonly for everybody to look at would be the over. Burrow's healthy. Look what Stroud did last week, and it really helps if you pump the brakes and pull back and really look at the matchups and where we are, and look at something when a total's 47.5 open or even 48. You have to realize that that's a little bit too high, because there are some decent Texan home road splits. It's hard to do home road when you have an NFL. It has to be really drastic. How does a team play here? How does a team play there? But that's just a good example of I could see the Texans and the Bengals game going under the total, and I could see the Bengals winning a game here, 21-10, something like that, and then everybody kind of scratching their head like, what the heck happened?
Yeah. Well, Texans 4-4 ATS, but here's the thing: the over's going. It's hit 3 of the last 4. But to your point, Cincinnati defensively is a different animal than Tampa Bay. Look what Cincinnati did against San Francisco. So that reason alone, right? Do you think Stroud's going to be able to carve up that secondary for 500 something odd yards like he did against Tampa? I mean, the kid's flat out. He looks like a franchise quarterback. But you're right. I mean, to me, this is where the Texans are probably stepping up in weight class. And you got Cincinnati that's starting to roll a little bit. You got these other teams in the AFC stubbing their toe. Cincinnati's like, all right, hey, AFC North got to keep pace with who? The Baltimore Ravens, got to keep pace with Kansas City and Jacksonville in the AFC. So to your point, yeah, I would lean towards Cincinnati. I just think they're overall the better team. I don't know. I mean, look, at 6.5, I'm comfortable with that. If it was 7+, I'd be a little gun shy, but this is your step up in competition for the Texans, where we're like, all right, hey, it's been a nice story for the Texans all season long. And part of me, that game's actually in Houston, but I still like Cincinnati on the road in that game.
I don't bring it up.
I'm sorry.
No, it's in Cincinnati. It's in
Cincinnati. Yeah.
It's in Cincinnati. It's just, but overall, it's just, I mean, the point is, don't fall too in love with teams week to week. It's just scheduling is very important. Nobody can figure it out. And I mentioned it here a few weeks ago. Don't expect the Lions to play really well in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Remember I said it? I said,
they got killed.
If you're going to, but people kind of look at that and be like, well, look what happened to the Lions in Baltimore. And if you look kind of contrary and you kind of expect that, you can get a little bit of value. And I think the following week you got a good value on Detroit that Monday night against the Raiders, where it was under a touchdown. So things like that happen a lot. I think the Cincinnati game at home, I think it's priced a little bit lower than really it should be. Now, how much lower would it be? 6.5 juice right now. Pinnacle is 6.5 minus 104. You could have got a 6 earlier in the week, but I focused on the total there because I think that Stroud has played great. He's going to be rookie of the year, runaway rookie of the year. But this is a game here where I could see them, struggling. So that's why I played it. The other thing about the week thing is, when you have a team look really, really bad, how bad are they? I mean, look, even the market kind of looked at the Jets. I mean, how could you look any worse than the Jets?
Yeah.
On Monday night, I played the Chargers for a lot. Well, I played it for a good percentage. I mean, it was a higher percentage than I normally would play, probably about double. I did I had a little bit of, that game opened 2.5.
Yeah.
And it was 2.5 for actually about 2 days. Not at gigantic limits, but decent. And then it went to 3, and then it closed 3.5. And so again, people smarter than me were on that side as well. I wasn't chasing steam. I just thought that I just tend to, this late in the year, it's a problem if you have teams that don't score.
Correct. And the
or
Jets are that
score,
team.
or score a couple standard deviations below the league average. You know, you're going to have a problem no matter what. You're really going to have a problem if teams getting under a touchdown. You're really going to have a problem if those teams are laying points against anybody, against somebody else that can't score. You kind of have that situation this week with the Jets and the Raiders, where neither team can score. But I actually put a tweet out where, you know, the Jets opened 2.5, and I said, you know, traditionally, you kind of, if you're going to play good teasers or good teaser legs, you want to wait until it's close to game to kickoff as possible, unless you see something that you know is going to move.
Right.
So if you were able to get the Jets +8 or 8.5 and a 6-point Jets, I'm sorry, the Raiders in a teaser leg, I 100% knew, you know, money was going to come in on the Raiders late or middle week. And that's kind of what happened. You know, the Raiders went to -1 yesterday, and then it settled at a pick. Right now, it's one basically even money, which is basically a pick. There's not a huge difference between one and the Jets being one. But you know, the Jets opened 2.5, and it's just, and a lot of people were taking 2.5. There's other options than taking a team that cannot score on the road, really against anybody.
What's the total on that?
How bad do you have to be where you're average? How much are you going to put on your defense? Somebody has to score.
Eventually,
and this goes back 30 years, Rich, 30 years. You just go back and look, and it's not a great play. There's nobody in the NFL that's ever, we started the show with the 77 Tampa. There's nobody in the league now that's ever going to be that bad. Even bad is, you know, is very close to the other teams that are also poor. And people are pointing to this Jets defense. Oh, they're really good. They're actually not that good.
No, they're not the 85
average.
Yeah.
And if you can't score, it just puts so much pressure, and they're going to dress people up as a favorite. And I just think it's a bad thing. I didn't love the Raiders, but, you know, I thought it was a solid teaser leg. I don't play into that. Their new coach has, has them fired up.
Yeah.
That usually lasts a week.
Jeff Saturday. Yep.
Yeah, the Saturday thing. I think then it settles in. You are who you are. And this is probably going to be a game that looks like the Raiders-Packers. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar type game. With that being said, if you force me to, obviously I like the Raiders earlier in the week, even getting the 2.5, but I just bring it up because it's one of those things where we saw in Technicolor how bad the Jets are. There's no reason to assume that they're going to immediately get better. I actually have something out of the box. I've been listening all week to some older NFL guys. Like, I think a lot of these guys that cover the NFL for a long time. Years ago, I used to have a problem with Dr. Z with Sports Illustrated, Zimmerman. When I was a kid, I was like, this guy's great. I got older. I was like, wow, is he too close to this? He's way off. And I think you have that issue now with Peter King. These guys are kind of just, they're on their reputation. Like, they get the best seats at the restaurants. I think they're almost like mini celebrities, these guys. So I said they stopped at some point being having no bias in their coverage. So I kind of dismissed a lot of them. But there's a few guys that I still kind of respect. And there's this thing I heard, and it's true. If you research, the Glazer family owns the Bucks. And for years, they have been close with Belichick. And there's forget the rumor of Washington. There's a rumor that we kind of mentioned a couple weeks ago, like, do you come in and you don't fire Bowles? You kind of read between the lines and you say, thanks for being the placeholder. You be the defensive coordinator. Yep. Bill's going to come in. He likes you as a coach. I don't think he's going to get rid of you. You still have the problem with the quarterback, but the draft is deep. Right. And Tampa's not terrible. I don't think Tampa's going to dump all their games. I have to look at what their cap is, what they'd have to offer. But I think if you get any of the top 3 quarterbacks this year, you could be the running. I bring it up just because one of that old time guy that's close with the Glazer family said that Belichick is out this year. Now, I don't believe that that's true. I tried to reach out to as many people as possible, but everybody that I know that either worked in the NFL won't put it out. They'll dislike Belichick. Nobody worked for him exclusively. They were usually against him, so their opinions are a little bit biased.
Yep.
But I think we could piece it together. I didn't consider Tampa seriously until I thought of the Glazer family. What do you think?
It's an interesting, you're drawing some interesting parallels to it. I think right now everything's purely speculation. Like even the report coming out that if they lose in Germany, he's going to get fired. That's not happening. They're not going to do him that disservice. He's not going to retire. He wants to catch and surpass Shula. We know that. We mentioned a couple of those teams, but I even threw out one the other day. Look, you're not going to fire him because you want to try to get some draft capital for him. Think about that. But I said, wouldn't it be something if the Jets really implode with Wilson? They believe Rodgers is coming back. Bill's a New York guy. He loves the Giants. He spurned the Jets. He comes full circle to stick it back to New England because they fired him. Now that would be.
Because I didn't send this to you, but that was my segue from speaking about the Jets. I said, or did we speak? I can't remember, but we're on the same page. I said, think completely outside the box. And there's a few people that I'm acquaintances with that are diehard Jet fans, and they kind of dismissed this. And the other one was kind of like, I don't know. But you read my mind. I think Salah's overmatched. I think he's been overmatched. The Hard Knocks kind of solidified it. Hackett was free rolling as offensive coordinator. Look at Hackett's history. He was Blake Bortles' coach, who actually regressed. And they made him offensive coordinator or whatever they made him. And then he got a gift to go to Green Bay, and he parlayed that into the head coaching job in Denver, and he flamed out. So they felt pity on him, I guess, because Rodgers was like, yeah, give me that guy. Maybe just because it was the offensive coordinator, wouldn't bother him. Rodgers is the offensive coordinator on that team. He's going to have.
It's his reluctance to bench Zach Wilson. That's the problem.
I think it's more than that. I think that whole stick to your point. People are thinking, oh, what's the number on the Jets to make the playoffs? I think it's more likely that they lose a bunch of games. They end up with 6 wins total.
Yep.
And the Patriots consider, or they get, and this will be a thing because Belichick isn't working on a 1-year contract or nothing. No. Nobody knows what his contract is, but he definitely has a contract. So this would be something where it would be worked on the back end. He is the New York guy, like you said, and I would get rid of everybody on the Jets and let Belichick bring in. I let him hire McDaniels again. You get Rodgers next year, and you have a defense. I can't think of a better scenario for the Jets. And if what's his name, Woody, for the Jets, if Belichick is even remotely available,
you have to.
Think of that scenario for the Belichick haters and the Brady lovers. Now you got Belichick with Rodgers and a defense. And Salah, he's just not the guy.
Remember too, Belichick.
These guys were free rolling, Rich. These guys were straight up free rolling. When they got Rodgers, if Rodgers wasn't here, say Rodgers didn't get hurt, how bad is this team?
Oh, they're horrible. They're worse than the Giants.
How bad is the outlook? How is the future? Right now, everybody's hanging on like Rodgers is going to be.
That's the assumption. But here's the thing. If he does come back at 40, 39, 40 years of age, you cannot have the same coaching staff. And actually do you one better when you think about it as well. Belichick doesn't give a shit about the offense. He's a defensive guy. So he's basically coming in a ready-made, and you've got some offensive weapons, don't get me wrong, but you can also turn around and flip Zach Wilson. You can get rid of him. You bring in another viable option. In hindsight, they should have kept.
Let him be the backup.
yeah,
let him stay
yeah.
there. You know,
They
I mean,
should have
listen,
kept.
he looks
They should have
terrible.
kept Mike
He
White.
looks terrible now, but
Yeah,
but why you paid him all that money? You can keep
yeah.
him. Maybe you can trade him. I mean, that's a good point. If somebody will pick up, but that's my thing is if Belichick's getting killed because he was the GM
Of course,
and he picked a lot of these
he
players.
was in charge.
And
of
you
the
know,
talent.
what that is. I'm not overly. It is a little bit of a crapshoot. I mean, some of the best GMs that have ever existed in this, they didn't when they've had a couple poor years, they didn't automatically become lousy. Like when Bobby Beathard went to San Diego years ago, mid '90s, he didn't automatically become terrible after they went to the Super Bowl. It's just sometimes guys get hurt.
Yeah.
It's a tough predicting thing. All you have to look at how tough the predicting thing is. Last night, you had a guy that was picked first overall. And I don't care how bad the Panthers are against a guy that, looks way better. And he played in the PSAC last year. Not the crap on the PSAC, but, apologies to every good player that's ever come out of there, including Andre Rison, who went to Kutztown. He's PSAC, but he's a D2 player, a great D2 player. But what does it say for, when Brock Purdy starts in this league and a D2 player starts? I know what it is. The teams are forced to take chances on quarterbacks early, where you might have a much better shot if you take really good offensive linemen early. Their staying power, the percentage of those guys, if you take in the top, actually went back, believe it or not, I went back and looked at 40 years, 35 years of offensive guards, tackles, or centers taken in the first 10 to 15, 1 through 15, and how they panned out. And the percentage is unbelievably higher than if you took a quarterback. Now, it's not a tremendous sample, but if you did the criteria of, were you an all-pro, how about if you just started more than 3 years? You go back and say, look, people say, oh, Tony Mandridge was a huge bust. They forget that Tony Mandridge came back in the league and started for 4 years as a guard for Peyton Manning.
That's right.
He started and did not lose his position. Like, he played well. He wasn't an all-timer.
Right.
And then you have a couple of guys that got injured, like Tony Baselli was a great player when he played, but the track, and then you have guys like who the Colts have now, like Quentin Nelson, the North Jersey kid, who might be, who's the best probably offensive lineman maybe since, Anthony Munoz. You have the track record of it, but it's not a sexy pick. This is the year where to me, I tweeted it constantly. I was a big Will Levis guy, and that was just based on what I saw. Like, I didn't go to the camps. I didn't go to the workouts. I just figured you're going to get a possible first or second round pick. You could probably get them late, trade out of it, try to get a lineman, and try to get Levis. Now, all of it's kind of a crapshoot, but you're really taking chances. Picking quarterback early, and you see it with this kind of crap where Bryce Young's your first pick, and don't feel bad for Bryce Young. The guy's guaranteed $38 million.
But to your point,
if I'm guaranteed $38 million, I'm in front of the thing. I'm going, this is what we have to do. Tepper would hate me because I would say, I'm throwing to Thielen's my guy. Get me a wide receiver.
Well, remember,
we segued into the Jets. I wanted to bring up the Belichick thing.
No,
I'm going to bring it up again. I'm going to bring it up again because if these old-time guys are right, again, we don't know what the contract is.
Yeah. It's definitely multiple years.
It's something substantial.
Yeah,
it's something substantial. But he's getting, is Kraft going to buy him out $30 million? He might think he can get draft picks or something.
Well, that's the other
all
thing.
Over.
And listen, if you're a Jets fan, you got to think about it, right? Sanchez, Darnold, Zach Wilson. I mean, all right, Sanchez, couple runs here, no doubt, AFC championships, defense ready, but you're doing a disservice to the fan base. And you also have to wonder too, within that locker room, the defensive players are leaving everything out there, and this kid can't muster 14 friggin' points. So Belichick comes in, he basically, mops everything up, brings in his guys with his coordinators in the AFC, where he's so obviously familiar with that division. You've got an older Buffalo team. Miami's still hit or miss. And then you can turn around.
And I've heard that the Patriot fans, I mean, you see this on Twitter, but somebody sent a thing out to me and said, I live in Boston. He said, they are all over wanting Belichick to be wrong. Now, I don't know if that's a narrative. I don't know how true that is. Maybe I have to tune in on Sirius, maybe,
that's
some
a
of the
spoiled
Boston
fan base
radio shows. But, this kind of thing stirs up. And Boston's a lot like Philly. They don't care. You can imagine winning 7 Super Bowls in Philly.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
And they want them gone.
What have you done for me lately? What have you done
for
me
lately? Right? It's and it doesn't help that Brady went and won again. I got in a couple of disagreements with, listen, anybody can go back and look and see how good those defenses were that held the Rams and McVay to 3 points. Held the Eagles to 14 points except the last 2 minutes of the game. City. I mean, they stuffed the Colts and Manning had the highest ranked offense in those AFC Championship. He stuck Manning and Harrison in a bag, and they scored 14 points and then they scored 3 in a snowstorm. That was all their defense. I can't believe that Rodney Harrison and Vrabel and Bruschi and Willie McGinnis and all these guys haven't come out to say, hey, this wasn't just Brady. One year they were top 3 defense by what I use. And if you want to use DVO, look at Patriots defense. How about the year? Now, somebody said to me, he said, well, they gave up the touchdown to the Giants the last drive. I said, well, that's a really tough thing. Right. They held them to 10 points
14 points
for the whole game.
Yeah.
They were 10 points. They scored.
Well, 17-14. Yeah.
Sure. If you hold a team in the Super Bowl under 20 points, remember they lose the other Super Bowl, they scored 21. It wasn't.
And Asante Samuel goes right through his hands.
Sure. I mean, how about the first run of I can't believe I'm sitting here defending the Patriots. Don't even like the Patriots. But the first Super Bowl run, people forget Brady got hurt in the AFC Championship.
Bledsoe came in,
they were
and then they
huge dogs. They were 10-point dogs to Cowher.
Yep.
Bledsoe went because he thought he was going to start in the Super Bowl. They start Brady. The defense takes the greatest show on turf, doesn't score to the fourth quarter, and then they turn back. They score 2 touchdowns. It's just, listen, you can chop it up any way you want. The truth is you don't win the teams that consistently are competitive. You have a good top tier quarterback, and you have a good defense. This is why Reed was good with McNabb. They got criticized here because they couldn't get over the hump, but they were competitive every year. It's only 1 game in the playoffs. Some things happen.
Yeah.
It's not a 7-game series, but if you're consistently there, now you don't want to lose to Arizona on the road to an inferior team, or lose to a Tampa team, that you destroyed 3 weeks before. That's why Reed ended up, and then McNabb got older. Yeah. But that's the criteria people should look at. Brady's great, but if I have a first draft for my life, I'm not picking Brady. I'm just not. I'm actually picking Mahomes. That's not really popular. But if you give me 2 evenly matched teams, 2 evenly matched offenses, and it's for my life, I might pick Mahomes. I might pick Marino. I mean, Marino's a great example when you don't have a defense.
Yeah. And by the way, gutsy play by Belichick, right? Because everyone's thinking Bledsoe is going to get the start. He goes back to Brady. People forget that. So good job by you. And 100%. You have to have a line. You have to have a defense. And you also, at times, a certain point in your career, you have to have a running game. Elway carried those teams in the mid to 80s. And then all of a sudden, what happens? 97, 98, you get Davis. But the Jet connection is kind of interesting. I want to get your thoughts, by the way, on the other team in New York right now, the Giants. You talk about bad offenses. Cowboys are laying 17. This, to me, that kid DeVito, let him throw 26 picks. I don't care. I don't even think the Giants are going to score in this game. I'd be shocked if they actually were able to get 6 points on a couple field goals?
Well, it's something in the NFL. You know, we've seen this kind of thing before. Remember the year that Manning got hurt and they were going to get the first pick, and they basically, I don't want to say they tank, because the players don't tank. The players are playing for jobs. They're playing for contracts. All these guys look at film. You might not be on that stinky team, but somebody else might offer you something and say, you know what, we liked how you pass protected when your team was awful.
Film doesn't lie.
Yeah, so the tanking is never in the players. The players are trying to play their best, at least the first three quarters. At least maybe they're doing a little Olay, late in the game. But and I remember they were getting, I think the Patriots, they were like at 20. I could go back and look, but I remember that every game it seemed that they were just getting an inordinate amount of points. And I remember one game, I think they were getting 17, 18. They were covering the entire game. They gave up a late touchdown. I think they lost by 20. You might see something like that where I think Dallas's goal, if I'm coaching Dallas, is to get up and nobody get hurt.
Yeah,
that's
fourth quarter.
That's your goal. Yep. Get up, run the ball, get some guys that, you're not going to lose the game. You're not worried about the 17. By accident, do they win this game 20-3 or 23-0 or something? Maybe. Can I see, something goofy happening, 2 fumbles, a pump blocked? All of a sudden, the Giants are on the 3. They get in. Look at DeVito. He scored. It'll add a little juice to the game. I'm not banking on it. I think a good play is, and I played it, is Dallas in the first half. Dallas is -10 in the first half. I'm not positive if I missed a good number. I don't think I did. I think 10 is
that's a pretty strong
number. I can 100% see Dallas getting out 14-0.
100%.
17-0, 20-0, and then coasting.
Yep.
I don't even want Parsons in the game after that. I don't want any of these guys. You have a lot of stuff coming up. And are Dallas's backups good enough to beat the Giants? Probably at this point.
And that's a 425.
But I think that's a play if you're looking for something. And you know what's weird? All these shows I watch, I haven't heard anybody mention first half, unless the people that are really smart or have already played it, and they're like, let's not talk about it, anybody. But I think this late in the season, you get a team that is going to go to the playoffs against a really poor team. This is going to happen. It's not just the Giants. You might see next week or the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a little bit of that overall. You're going to see, teams get in, teams that are good that are playoff teams. You might see the Kansas City. I had a couple of teams written down the next few weeks. You might see where teams get out, and then they're waiting. I don't want to say they coast, but they're not going to do anything insane. They might lower the blitzes. I've seen it year in and year out late in the season. The Eagles aren't in a position to do that because everybody they play, it seems the next 5 games is tough. So you're not going to see that with them. But I think Dallas plays into that. And that's how I see that particular game. You could play Giants team total under, but I think it could be a little bit of a trap because the market is aware of what's going on, and if you don't see anything that's drastic, if they put that too low, smart,
right? Because maybe
we'll hit it. Yeah,
you got second string in late in the game, and Saquon's still there running, and he breaks one for 70-something yards. I mean, it's just
weird things happen in the NFL. Nobody is that bad. Remember the year that Detroit didn't win a game, and they were saying, "Oh, can a college team beat them?" And
right.
That narrative is out there, and they don't understand that the teams that are bad are not as bad as you think. If you have the 32nd, you have the worst ranked defense. They're not that much worse than the 27th ranked defense.
Yeah.
Everybody's it's a mixture of bad and you don't want to get overblown. And it leads me into my other game. You know, you get Steelers and the Packers.
3.5.
I've heard one person I respect likes the Packers. Everybody else on the Steelers, I did not play the open line, and I was able to get a 3.5 -12, and then there was a 15. There was also -20 with Green Bay, and I think this is a great example of, you know, by anything I look at, Steelers are terrible, and Packers have been terrible, and both teams don't score.
Right.
And yeah,
Or the
the Steelers
quarterback.
defense. Look at the Steelers defense. How the Steelers beat the Ravens, I don't know. It's just, you know, Baltimore's first and goal on like the 3 or something, and somehow they throw an interception, and then the Steelers go down and score a touchdown and win the game. If they play another 15 times this year, Steelers might not score.
Right.
That's the difference right now. But I played the Packers. It's if I can't, I'm blown away that the Steelers can actually have 6 wins if they win this game.
I had them
See,
I had 3 teams coming out of the AFC North. The Steelers were one of them, and I based it. I thought maybe Pickett was going to take that next maturation process, the next step. But you're right, their offense stinks. I mean, and it shows you another good job of Tomlin. But I don't like the Packers at all because I'm not a fan of the quarterback.
I'm not a fan of either guy, either team. But you know, I can see much more likely Steelers winning a very close game. Now, when I lose, you know, 17-13, okay. You know, I kind of had the opposite a couple of weeks ago when I had the Browns. I thought I had a much better defense. Geno Smith is now Geno Smith again.
Go.
And I have the game in the bag. You know, I have 3.5. I have a money line play, and Tucker can't get a first down. Seahawks score. I lose by half. It happens. That probably could happen again. As you know, Jordan Love throws an interception late. I lose the game 17-10. Okay. I think it's much more likely that the Steelers do something just as poor or worse. And, you know, Jordan Love, as bad as he looked, I'm not in love with the Steelers defense. And I could see him doing something half decent to actually beat the Steelers. It's not a popular play. I played it, so we'll see what happens.
Would you even consider that that Arizona Atlanta game? Like Arizona right now is they're 1-8, and Murray's coming back. So you're talking about a quarterback that's been sidelined for 11 months. Atlanta's defense stinks. I'm sorry, Atlanta's offense stinks. Their
offense stinks. Yeah, defense isn't that bad except for
that quarterback.
Last week with Minnesota, that was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they benched Ritter. They're going to start Heineke. I think they've gone back and forth and wavered. I mean, you know, how they won a couple games late this year, special teams. They have a good kicker in that young kid. But I look at this game, and I guess maybe people will say, well, Murray's going to come in and he's going to be rusty, and here you go. And, you know, it's Atlanta. This is the strong play here. I kind of label this a look but don't touch game. And then the other game,
there was a low limit opener where Arizona was actually favored, and then quickly after, like, some of those lines are like used for kind of marketing. You know, they put a line out. Some of these offshores will put a line, and then, you know, they'll move it as soon as somebody bets it for, you know.
But I think Arizona has to win. Murray's got to look good, and I'm going to tell you why, because I think they're thinking about Caleb Williams. So they want to play him to see how well, to showcase him. So that's another reason that I was like, all right, well, maybe Arizona. I don't know what to expect. And
he also hasn't played in a while. I expect him to do a lot of that where he drops back and runs.
Yeah,
you know, I have to take a look at his total yards. I don't know, you know, for rushing, I can see him doing that a lot because he hasn't played in a while. And that, if you're rusty, he's a great athlete. And I could see him running around like crazy. And, you know, when he starts running around, he might be able to win just him running around, you know. The reason I bring up that opening line for Arizona, because it was quickly changed. If it had stayed Arizona favored, I would have loved Atlanta here is some kind of a teaser leg or even as a dog. Again, there's not much of a difference between getting one or giving one. Some places have two. I think Circuit Vegas is using two with Atlanta. Again, the week to week thing. People see what happened last week, and they had problems with what's the name came over and he ran like crazy and won the game in the last few drives. The Vikings guy.
Oh, Dobbs.
What did he come in? He had 3 days.
Which, by the way, he should be comeback.
He didn't say anything, and he ran. He's a great athlete. He's really tough to bring down. They weren't prepared for it.
Should be comeback player of the year. I'm sorry, no disrespect to DeMar Hamlin. The kid hasn't even stepped on the field yet. Give it to Josh Dobbs.
Well, he did step on the field. He played one. He got one. He was involved in one series. He'll get involved in week 17, and that's another thing. It was probably 10 tweets that we didn't really need to send. I didn't need to send out. But I'll hit that in a minute. I don't like the Atlanta Arizona game, but if I had to place, I would look at Atlanta. There's too much going on, which is like you said. A lot of people are down on Arthur Smith. I do think Atlanta will win the game, but Murray's too much of a
wild card.
And he will be on another team. He's better than. I mean, he's not better. He's better than a lot of these quarterbacks.
Jacksonville 49ers. That's a big game, man. I mean, 49ers dropped 3 in a row. Jacksonville's won what? 4 of 5.
Jacksonville's has played good. They could sneak up. Obviously, they're going to make the playoffs. Yep. I think they're going to lose this game. I think San Fran will win this game. The game opened 2.5. I think 3 is actually okay. I think it's borderline desperation time for the Niners. I don't think that again, it's tough to quantify. The team needs the game kind of stuff this early, and I never really played into that. But I do think San Fran overall is a better team. They're not as bad as what Cincinnati showed. I don't think anybody can stop Cincinnati when they're on their game. I think I brought up last week, San Fran had a good defense last year, and they played Kansas City close. So last year or the year before, I don't know, they went crazy. They were down 3, and all of a sudden they were down 24. So some of these really high-powered offenses, it's really tough for anybody to stop them when they get going. I don't think Jacksonville has that kind of a team. I just like the Niners better. I don't care where it's necessarily played. I think that the number is low. I played San Fran. I like San Fran in the game. Back to your comeback player of the year. What you're handicapping with that, you're not handicapping anything normal. Writers don't spend a lot of time on that. This is basically a marketing award. It's not as important as the MVP, which also writers don't spend a lot of time on that either. They kind of take a look at who's really good, the team. Oh, gosh, did anything really stand out? I value quarterbacks over wide receivers. Jalen Hurts got hurt, and right. Mahomes is playing well. I'm going to vote for Mahomes. They don't spend a lot of time of it. I don't care if it's NBA. I don't care if it's NFL. The Offensive Player of the Year award is for the guy that doesn't get the MVP, so they can give it to a wide receiver or whatever. So that's become almost a de facto award too. All these it's marketing for the NFL. I consider Comeback Player of the Year really similar to like Man of the Year almost. Who cares about Man of the Year? But that's kind of what you're looking at. And if you come with that kind of a rationale, they can't give it to anybody but Hamlin. So Hamlin's only on the roster who win that award. So they can bring him out and say, look, this guy, they had to resuscitate him, and now he's alive.
You can't take it. Yeah, 100%.
None of these other guys died. How are you gonna vote for somebody? And then somebody asks you, well, how do you vote against them? You're almost like against.
Literally came back from death. Yeah, he literally came back.
It's like, if you're not going to give the award to the guy that had leukemia, or
why don't you make it the NFL's Courageous Man of the Year award? Why don't you? You're
going to have to separate it, because the more the NFL gets aligned with sports books, they're going to focus more on, hey, actually people are betting on this. This is available certain places. Right now, I don't think they care about it. And I especially don't think the writers who vote on it care about it. They're going to go, oh, Hamlin. I just can't see, a writer saying, wow, look at the season that this guy had. He didn't die. It's just, you come back and
get chastised. Yeah. He get hammered.
He hasn't really. Well, you know what I said? This is completely out of the box. Check this out. What if Hamlin wins? Right? Tomorrow he wins. They put him in a couple extra plays late. Week 17. Let's assume Denver doesn't need the game or whatever. He plays a little bit. He wins the award, and then off season he actually is a part of the dime package. He comes back. We could win again. He can come back again and be like, oh my God, look, he's even better. He's really on the roster.
Yeah. Making an impact.
Could you imagine that? He's 2-time comeback player of the year. If he's on a roster and actually contributes even more, he could win it again.
I look at comeback as you're overcoming adversity, whether you're a journeyman quarterback or you dealt with something that's life and death. But for me, what did Geno Smith really come back from? Being an average quarterback? And no disrespect to Geno, but this kid Dobbs' story is unbelievable. I mean, he's been cut, he's been traded, he's been cut, he's been traded, and all he does is go out and he's just a consummate pro. He wins a big game. Minnesota's got an opportunity to make a playoff, appearance. I mean, you go with the hot hand, so to speak, but I get what you're saying.
You know what? If the Saints, who have a top defense, if the Saints go in there and sack him 6 times, he throws 3 interceptions, that'll be the end of the Dobbs conversation.
Well, 100%.
What's happened? This has happened going all the way back to Matt Flynn, Scott Mitchell, Matt Castle. Matt Castle's a bad example. But any of these guys who have come in as a backup and have played 1 or 2 games,
Robinson.
look great. Yeah, have looked great, get themselves a contract. There's no film on them. The defense basically has to play, like a vanilla defense. There's no tendencies to key on. There's no film. And these guys play well. And then lo and behold, when they actually have some games to look at, these guys end up being average, or in case of Flynn, don't even win their starting position. People forget Flynn was a backup to Favre for years.
By the way,
he plays well in a couple games that nobody cares about. He gets a big contract in Seattle. Russell Wilson beats him out. He doesn't even he's a backup. He's not even on a roster. The guy's sitting on a beach somewhere with $25 million. And I just know that this kind of thing happens a lot. You do have a little bit on Dobbs, but he's an athlete who, they weren't prepared for him. I think it's going to be if he does anything substantial against the Saints,
then
I'll say wow.
And the funny,
it's more likely he's not going to. He's going to throw interceptions. He's going to get sacked.
Yeah.
And not only that, it'll kill this Vikings. It'll get rid of this Vikings playoff crap, which people are all excited. The team's playing around. They're not catching Detroit.
No.
And the last game of the year, somebody said, that's going to be an important game. No, it isn't. The Vikings are going to be out of it. Lions are going to be, they might be playing for a top seed because it's week 17 after the Dallas game.
Yeah.
They could be playing for seeding. They might not. They might have already locked up the 1 seed.
Yeah.
That's how crazy their scheduling is.
It's a good point too with those quarterbacks cashing, and people forget when Mitchell came in a couple times from Marino, they thought right away he cashed in with Detroit. He played with the Orlando Thunder for a year, then came back in the NFL, then won 10 games. And I think 94, 95, he was able to cash in that regard. But again,
they had a good defense, they had a good line, and Sanders. I mean, they weren't, but he was average. And and they just, it's funny, I said they gave Lomas Brown, they put Lomas Brown in the Lions Hall of Fame, and the only thing I remember of Lomas Brown is that he was a really good lineman who let Mitchell who admitted that he let Mitchell get hurt on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, if that happened,
he had 40.
I mean, could you imagine disliking your quarterback that badly?
No, you can't do. Well, he was also.
I mean, how does that even happen? I mean, you should be a pariah for doing that.
Yeah.
But they give you awards for it, apparently.
Yeah. He also ran his mouth. He ran his mouth before that playoff game when the Eagles put up 50-something odd points.
Oh, he said, oh, yeah. Remember that game? I was at that game. God, we were drunk by halftime. It was 38-7. They threw a Hail Mary. It was a laugh fest after that, right? 38-7, they put on. 38, they put them on a half. God forbid.
I know we got a couple of minutes. I want, can I get your thoughts on Harbaugh in Michigan?
Oh, yeah. Desmond Howard, of all people, it's tough to take anybody from Michigan seriously, but I actually agree with them. I mean, this was Saban. Are they talking about getting suspended?
Not at all.
Nah. If this is sweet, Dabo Big Mouth. Nah. Listen, nobody likes Harbaugh. He's got a strong personality is putting it mildly. I mean, this is the guy when he was still quarterbacking. Jim Kelly retired and talked poorly about him. Said that I forget who he was, but I think he was with the Colts. He said the team's not tough enough, and he punched Kelly in the face in a lobby, in Indianapolis for talking about this. That's horrible. That guy doesn't change. Remember, they go back and look on YouTube, the interaction between him and Jim Schwartz at late in the game when Schwartz was the head coach of Detroit, and San Fran won a really close, tough game in Detroit, and he kind of squeezed his hand to smash it. And Harbaugh's not a small guy. He's just kind of we all kind of know people like that. He's kind of just a spazzy, I know more than you kind of guy. And he's also the kind of guy that I not that anything's wrong with being I know more than you. I think you need that attitude as a head coach. This criticism of people like, I think he's the smartest guy in the room. You better think that, or the players will run roughshod over you. So, Michigan took the contract off the table, and Harbaugh's the kind of guy I think that would be like, guess what? I don't care. He's also the kind of guy that'd say, I'm not taking a suspension. I'm coaching Penn State. You want to suspend me? I'm going to get lawyers to back it. I'm sure he's telling the team president. He has leverage here. You screw the kids over some. But I thought you suspend them for the Penn State game, suspend them for the next game, have them coach Ohio State. The only people that would be upset would be Ohio State people. Who cares about that?
Because I think they're going to train wreck Penn State. They're going to train wreck Maryland, and then you set it up.
If they're going to be Penn State, they're going to be Penn State anyway. You don't need Harbaugh on the sidelines.
Exactly.
Harbaugh wants to coach that game. Obviously, he wants to coach every game. The rumors they're going to suspend them three games, and then that way, if they make the how do you not put them on the sideline against Ohio State? It's just as fair to Michigan. It is an invitational. This isn't a playoff. This is an invitational. I think the committee is hoping that they lose either to Penn State or to Ohio State. This isn't a run over. I mean, Michigan is only a 4-point favorite. It isn't like they're 3-1 to win the game, market wise. And the Ohio State line is going to be close. So I thought they were going to sit back and do nothing and hope that they lose a game, because then you can get them out. Because if they're tied with anybody SEC,
that's right. You don't even have to worry about.
If Alabama beats Georgia, you can say, oh, sorry, Michigan, you played a lousy schedule. Bring both the SEC teams in, and their hands been kind of forced a little bit. I I didn't think that they were going to suspend him 3 games. I think it would be really great if they suspend them for 2. Kind of a really half-assed thing, and then have them come back for Ohio State just to see the Ohio State people go absolutely ballistic.
I think the whole thing is a joke, to be honest with you. I think people have been signing. I mean, someone comment, this is the worst. And I was like, worst skin. I was like, you want to go back and talk about point shaving in the late 70s and the early 80s? I was like, you're going to talk to me about how this affects bettors and gamblers, their train wrecking teams. Go talk about, they're not going to death penalty like SMU. And it's not as bad as 87. It's not as bad as Providence or Boston College or Arizona State. I mean, it's just, they don't like
TCU's coach said something I think is accurate. He said, we all know this goes on. Put out some fake signals. He goes, we put fake signals out. We beat Michigan. I mean, the overall problem is what what's the name from LSU said. The technology's there to not even have hand signals. Like, what are we doing? Like, you can't spend the money on the headsets. The NCAA makes $9 zillion. Take that away. I actually, if I was a head coach and I knew that this kind of stuff was going on, put out some fake signals. You can't get caught with this. I mean, sending the assistant.
I know,
to the Penn State play. I mean, be a little bit more creative. Like, send the assistant's friend.
Yeah. Listen, he's going to be on that plane. He's going to be on that plane to go to Penn State. He's going to be on the sidelines. That's going to be pretty much it.
And the interesting thing and the really difficult thing is Harbaugh's going to be in the NFL.
Yep.
It's probably going to be, I think, most likely he's going to be with the Raiders. Just kind of makes sense because I think Mark Davis seems like the kind of owner that would let Harbaugh do whatever he wants. That's right. Kind of what Harbaugh wants. He wants to be able to do everything. I could see Harbaugh's interviews saying, you guys stink. I'm great. I can fix everything. Yeah, I can just see it. If you want to win, I'm me. I could see him Dom Drapering the interview and just saying, I'm great. Call me Friday if you want me. And he's going to be in demand. And that's just the way it is. He doesn't need Michigan. They need him more than he needs them. And that's the case. I do want to give a game that I think is not very popular. I did bet it. I bet the Command Skins plus 6.5. And I think I'm probably going to get screwed again and lose by 7, but I don't care. I think it's a good play. Yes, 6.5. You can get 6.5. I don't think it's going to go to 7. I don't think there's any shot, but who knows? I've been a little bit wrong on this before. I don't see how. I mean, Geno Smith is, what's it, Dennis? He is they are who we thought they were. The Dennis Green thing. Geno Smith played. I think now it's going to look like he played above his head last year. He's back to being, I think, normal, and his normal is very average to below average.
Right.
And I think the Commanders, they could still lose the game. I hate that's kind of like, having your cake and eat it too. I hate when people do. I think I'll cover the game, but they'll lose by 3. That's such a horse shit way to bet. But I think 6 points is too much. I think I could see Geno Smith doing a lot of stupid things that will cost his team to cover, maybe even lose the game. They're not as good as I thought. It has nothing to do with them losing in Baltimore. And that's the other game I think is very interesting is I think, the Ravens at home and Ravens overall, the defense is playing great. I think as many metrics as you can use, I actually think the Browns have a defense that is as good.
Yes.
Nobody will agree with me. I think it's very close. And they say, well, if by that rationale, Deshaun Jackson isn't as good. I think it's going to be a close game, much closer than people think it's going to be. I bet the Browns also. So if you like to follow or back what I do or play against or whatever, I don't care what you do. I do like the Browns. And it's a little embarrassing to look at now. I can go 0-5, but I bet them. You know what you do? It's only 1 week. I think this, like, we start getting late in the year, you're going to see a little of these kind of slight overlays, and I think it is a little bit of an overlay for what I think is a decent team, and I'm not as confused about their QB situation. I think if he could get sacked 8 times, they could still lose the game. They could still win the game 13-10.
Right.
And their defense, do not sleep on the Browns' defense. The defense is good. I think they're going to play well. As long as everybody stays healthy, they're going to play well the rest of this year. Do you have any opinion? You mentioned the Bills. I think it's going to be a must-win for the Bills. It's a lot of points. It'll be a good teaser play.
Yep. I was thinking.
I do think that the defense for Broncos has evened out. I don't think you throw out the Miami game, but if you're looking at everything and you kind of set that a little bit to the side, that they've played better. But I can also see the Bills really lamping somebody. The Bills are not a great team, but they're not as bad.
But they're also backs against the wall, desperate. Backs against the wall.
They're still a playoff team.
Yeah,
it's tough, as we see. It's tough to play to win in Cincinnati, and look what happened. Perfect going for it on 2 and making the game 24-18.
Yeah,
they get the ball. They got the ball back. If they won the game, it would have shut everybody up who was confused about going for 2 late. But I do think it's a high line. If you can get 7, there is some 7 slightly juiced. I don't want the 7.5. It's not a solid game, but I really don't like the Broncos in this game at all. So that's that. If you have any college games, like the quick college, we talk about Penn State, Michigan. I do think Penn State has a decent shot. The narrative on Franklin, we brought it up. He hasn't won a big game. He doesn't know what he's doing, blah, blah, blah. The narrative of, this Harbaugh's everything Penn State does, Michigan's better.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're going to go in and swamp Penn State.
I think they do. I mean, Penn State's got a good defense, but that quarterback, unless he takes shots down the field and these wide receivers can't get open, I think it's going to be a long game, a long day for Penn State. The game, I mean, I'll throw something light on just for shits and giggles, is Rutgers and Iowa, because it fascinates me that under.
I think Rutgers is a better team.
Yep.
And you're getting a 1 now. Has it changed? It doesn't matter what it is. You're getting a good, you're getting a money line for no juice, basically. I think Rutgers can win the game. I think they're a better team. I just think it's funny that you said it, because we haven't talked about that. And that's one of the games that I played. I also played Utah plus 8.5, believe it or not. And I think that
I like the over that game because Washington's been putting up about 45 plus, and I'm a fan of Penix.
I think Utah, with all the injuries, they still have their defense is good. I've been mentioning Pac-10 defenses, Pac-12, Pac-30, whatever they are now. Their defenses across the board have not been good. UCLA finally has a defense. Arizona isn't awful. Oregon is really good and underrated. And Utah has a good defense. Washington's I like good defenses late in the year, more than a touchdown. I think they can slow them down. I actually played Oregon, and I actually played a smaller play on Miami plus 14.
Okay.
Miami is, I think that's too many points. And Florida State's a very good team. It's really tough to go undefeated in this kind of scheduling. A lot of people are looking at Ole Miss against Georgia. They said Georgia's not as tough as they've been in the past. You're getting 11.5 with Ole Miss. I don't like Georgia in the game, but I actually think the scenario is going to happen where Georgia gets Alabama and Alabama wins.
Wow.
In the SEC finals. We'll talk about that when it comes. That happens, you could have a big mess on your hand.
Yeah.
But you know, those you know, we're on the same page with a couple of the games, except for Penn State. Will
Right.
be interesting. It'll be a good game to watch.
Hey, don't forget, everyone, give a proper follow on Twitter at Professor Shine and our Football Friday edition of BYP, always from our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports. Listen, they got the doorbusters. They got Black Friday week. It's going to be incredible. 50%, 20% off some certain items as well. You got to go. You can visit the store, in-store shopping, golf, baseball equipment, field hockey equipment, football equipment. They got the tees, they got the shirt, they got the throwback jerseys, they got the hats, the mugs, everything you need. Black Friday right around the corner. As I mentioned, if you tell them you heard about it right here on BYP with Q, you get 10% taken off your buy, and then 10% added on, I should say, your order, and 10% added on as well to your buy. So they got, listen, I love the store. I love everything they got in there. I got to get up there before the holidays, get some used weights and whatnot, maybe some throwback Giants t-shirts as well. And I can use those to kind of mop around the house with as the Giants continue to suck. But with all that being said, check them out online. If you go to playitagainsports.com and you put in location, New Jersey, 1450 Clements-Bridge Road. And don't forget to give the prop a follow on Twitter. As I mentioned, does a wonderful job at Professor Shine. Prop, always appreciate you, my friend. Put the shekels in the pocket this weekend, and we'll do it again next weekend.
Take care.